You can always tell when someone's lying, if you've lived with them long enough. I could tell with my wife, Janelle. The way her smile would stick for half a second too long. The way she'd touch her necklace when she was bluffing. The way her voice would go all sing-songy when she was about to manipulate someone. At one point, I used to admire that about her. She had this uncanny way of getting what she wanted without ever raising her voice. A walking charisma bomb. She could charm a TSA agent into waving her through with 2 extra bags and a full water bottle. That same charm got her cast on America's Perfect Parents, a network reality show that billed itself as part parenting challenge, part social experiment. In reality, it was just messy people in nice houses competing for clout while producers stirred the pot and America watched. When Janelle got the call, she acted humble. "Oh, I don't know if I can do it, Ben. Reality TV? Me." But I knew the second she said it, she was in. What I didn't know was how far she'd go, or what she'd say to our kids to win. The first sign something was off came a week into filming. I wasn't part of it. I was the ex, which in TV language means dead air. I'd moved out 9 months ago after we finally stopped pretending we were still a team. No big blow-up. No cheating. Just slow erosion, like a coastline giving in to the sea. We'd agreed on joint custody, week by week. Janelle had the kids during shooting, which I didn't fight. Honestly, I thought it'd be fun for them. A chance to do something different. But when I picked them up the following Sunday, I noticed it. First, it was small. My daughter, Emily, 10 going on 30, asked me at dinner, "Daddy, do you ever think about the impact of your tone?" I blinked. "My tone?" "Yeah," she said, flipping her fork like a food critic. "It's just your energy sometimes. It's a little dominating." That was new. Then my son, Tyler, age 7, Lego obsessed, said, "Mommy says we're learning to advocate for ourselves." Again, not a bad thing, but it felt rehearsed. The cadence, the phrasing, like someone else's voice was echoing through my kids. I should have said something right then, but I let it go. I figured, okay, Janelle's been binging therapy TikTok again. So what? Maybe she's finally working on her stuff. It wasn't until the 3rd week that I saw the footage. I'd gone to the house to pick up Tyler's stuffed shark, the one with the ripped fin he couldn't sleep without. Janelle wasn't home. Her car was gone. I still had a key. We hadn't bothered to change locks. While I searched the playroom, I noticed her laptop open on the dining table, screen dim but still on. A folder labeled Confessional B-roll/coaching was open in the video player. I didn't mean to click it. I didn't. But I did. And what I saw made my stomach twist. There was Janelle, in full glam makeup, sitting on the edge of the couch with Emily and Tyler seated on stools in front of her, like she was directing a commercial. She clapped her hands once, sharp. "Okay, let's try that again. Ty, remember, Dad doesn't really understand us. Can you say it like you mean it?" Tyler nodded, voice small. "Daddy doesn't really understand us." "Great. Your turn." Emily's voice was steady, confident. "When I'm with Mom, I feel like I can be myself. When I'm with Dad, it's like I'm walking on eggshells." Janelle beamed. "Perfect." The file ended with her saying, "This is gold. If we time this right, the edit will build the arc just before the challenges start." The edit. The arc. My kids weren't just being filmed. They were being scripted. And I was the villain in their story. I sat in her kitchen, alone, for 10 whole minutes. Not moving. Not blinking. Because I wasn't just angry. I was broken. How do you fight back against something like that? How do you correct the record without looking defensive? I tried confronting her civilly, later that week, when I dropped the kids off. "You coached them," I said. "You told them what to say. That's not parenting, Janelle. That's PR." She didn't deny it. She just gave me that look. The one with the too long smile. "Ben," she said, "reality TV is storytelling. And you're not exactly the protagonist here." That's when I knew. This wasn't about co-parenting. This was war. I called in a favor. See, I used to work in local broadcast before I switched to freelance editing. I knew a few people still floating around network development. One of them, a producer named Seth, had been in a hiring meeting for America's Perfect Parents. "They're scrambling for a wild card," he said. One of the couples dropped last minute. "What?" I didn't answer. I just sent him my audition tape the next day. It was short. Just me, my camera, and one line. "I'm not perfect, but I'm not fake. And I'm done letting someone else raise my kids on a script." Seth texted me 3 words. "You're in. Finale week." So I joined. As a late-season wildcard. The twist contestant. The real dad, with nothing to lose. America ate it up. Janelle's face when I walked onto the set. That was a moment I'll never forget. The camera didn't miss it either. She smiled like she was happy to see me. But her eyes told a different story. The second I stepped on that stage, I felt like a ghost in my own life. The lights were hot. The floor was polished, so bright it reflected the overhead rigging. Cameramen floated like vultures with steady cams. Every move was rehearsed, every beat blocked, except me. I was the twist, the wrinkle, the wild card, and I wasn't here to play fair. Janelle stood in the middle of the set, flanked by our kids. Emily looked confused. Tyler blinked up at me, like he wasn't sure if I was real. The host, a tanned, frozen smile TV personality named Chase Monroe, lit up like a Christmas tree. Well now, he beamed. Looks like we've got a little shake-up in the schedule, folks. Let's give a big perfect parents welcome to our surprise contestant, Ben Riley. The crowd gasped. Janelle's hand tightened on Emily's shoulder. I stepped up to my mark and offered a polite nod. I could feel 30 million people watching from their living rooms. But I wasn't sweating, because I didn't come here to be liked. I came here to be seen. Ben, Chase said, sliding into his mark like he was auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. You've been a quiet part of this story for a while now. Why the sudden decision to join? I kept my tone calm, honest, deliberate. I wasn't planning to, I said. But watching from the sidelines, I started to feel like the version of me that was being shown, that my kids were being told about, wasn't the truth. The crowd murmured. Janelle's expression didn't move. And now? Chase asked. I looked over at Emily, then at Tyler. Now I want to show them who their dad actually is. That first day of challenges was a whirlwind. We were dropped into a series of tasks designed to test co-parenting under pressure. It was part game show, part family therapy, and part emotional landmine. Think, building a treehouse together while narrating your greatest co-parenting win, or cooking a meal for your kids with ingredients they picked, blindfolded. Janelle was good. Too good. Everything she did came with a perfectly timed talking point. We believe in autonomy. We use emotions as data. We don't discipline, we dialogue. It was like watching a TED Talk parent. Me? I just tried to be myself. When Tyler panicked during the baking challenge because he forgot the eggs, I didn't tell him it was okay. I sat down on the floor next to him and said, I panic when I mess up, too. Want a problem solved together? He nodded. And we fixed it. Not for the cameras. For real. Later, in the confessional booth, a tiny, windowless space with a single ring light and a lav mic, one of the producers asked me, Do you think you're winning? I laughed. I don't even know what that means, I said. I'm not here to win. I'm here so my kids remember who I really am, not who they were told I was. The producer leaned forward, voice quiet. Ben, off the record. Janelle's been running circles around everyone all season. The audience loved her. Until you walked in. Something changed. I raised an eyebrow. She built a perfect image, I said. I just stepped in and breathed. By midweek, the cracks in her mask started to show. In one challenge, who knows the kids best? I beat her by a mile. Favorite color, comfort toy, dream vacation, which friend made them cry last year? I nailed them all. Emily smiled, genuinely, for the first time on camera. Janelle tried to brush it off with a quip. Well, I guess even the backup parent learns something eventually. It was meant to land light. It didn't. The audience was already starting to turn. Twitter lit up. Backup parent? Who says that? Ben knows their kids. Janelle knows the script. She's losing the room, and she knows it. The next night, she came to my trailer. She didn't knock. Just walked in like she still had keys to my life. You blindsided me, she said flatly. I turned off the mini coffee maker and met her eyes. Funny. That's what Tyler said when I picked him up last week, and he told me. Daddy, are you still mean all the time, or did you stop? She flinched. You weaponized their love, Janelle. She crossed her arms. You don't understand how hard this was for me. I was doing everything, to protect my narrative. I mean our narrative. I wanted us to look balanced. No, I said. You wanted to win. She hesitated. Then, well, maybe now you will. And just like that, she was gone. The finale was looming. A 2-hour live broadcast, culminating in The Choice. It was the show's signature twist. The kids would be presented with 2 paths. Go home with parent A or parent B. Both parents would give a short pitch. Just 2 minutes each. The camera would roll. The audience would watch. and the kids would choose. I didn't sleep the night before. I watched the video again, the one from her laptop, the one she probably thought I deleted. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to manipulate my kids, but I wasn't going to let them be manipulated either. Finale day. The studio was packed. Parents, past contestants, a roaring live audience. The set was transformed into a literal fork in the road. 2 white pathways lit with LED strips, diverging behind each parent's podium. Chase Monroe smiled like a shark in a tuxedo. This is America's perfect parents. And tonight, it's time for the choice. Janelle went first. She hit every note. Poised, empathetic, talking about consistency, love, empowerment, growth. She even teared up when she mentioned the early days of single parenting. The crowd gave a respectful, if cautious, round of applause. Then it was my turn. I didn't go to the podium. I went to the big screen behind the stage. I want to show you something, I said. This isn't for the judges or for the viewers. It's for my kids. The lights dimmed, and the video played. Raw, unedited. Janelle, coaching Emily and Tyler, feeding them lines, praising them when they said what she wanted. The room went silent. The camera caught Chase's mouth actually fall open. Jaws dropped across the front row. When the video ended, I turned back to the audience. I'm not a perfect parent. I've messed up. I've raised my voice. I've lost my patience. But I never lied to them. I never treated them like props in my own story. I looked at my kids, and I never will. The choice. Emily stepped forward, looked at her mom, then at me. She walked slowly, then deliberately, down my path. She didn't run. She didn't cry. But when she reached me, she took my hand. The audience erupted. Tyler stayed still, torn. He looked at Janelle, then down the middle. Finally, he walked toward her. Janelle smiled like she'd just dodged a bullet. But halfway down her path, Tyler paused. He looked back. Our eyes met, and I saw something in his hand, a folded piece of paper. He slipped it under my nameplate as he passed by, and whispered, I know what she made me do. I didn't read the note right away. I should have. I wanted to. But the weight of that moment, of the live stage, the lights dimming, the applause still echoing in the rafters, sat so heavy on my shoulders that I just stood there, holding Emily's hand, while the cameras kept rolling, and Chase Monroe wrapped up the finale with one last telegenic grin. An unforgettable season, America, he boomed. 2 parents. 2 paths. 1 choice. Tune in next week for the reunion special, and maybe, just maybe, a few surprises. The crowd erupted, like they hadn't just watched a family fracture under stage lights. But I wasn't listening anymore. I looked down at the nameplate on my podium, Ben Riley, and the folded paper Tyler had left beneath it. He hadn't looked back once after placing it, just kept walking toward Janelle, toward the script, toward the version of the story she still clung to. But that note, that was his truth. And mine. They swept us off stage like debris. The producers were buzzing, shouting things like, we need to clear for pickups, and someone check with legal. We might need a waiver on that clip. Janelle was whisked into a side room with her publicist. I caught a glimpse of her through the glass, sitting stiff in a makeup chair, lips tight, arms folded across her chest like someone who'd just lost control of a narrative she'd spent months perfecting. Emily was with me, still holding my hand, still silent. They tried to pull us apart for individual interviews, but I looked the assistant director straight in the eye and said, not right now. He backed off. We found a quiet spot in the corner of the studio, next to a rack of unused props from earlier challenges. Cardboard cutout houses, foam microphones, a giant stuffed avocado costume someone had worn during the healthy food relay. Can we go home? Emily asked. I nodded. Soon. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the note. I unfolded it slowly, careful not to tear the crayon-smudged edges. The handwriting was shaky, unmistakably Tyler's. Dad, I didn't want to go with her. She said if I didn't, she'd say I was confused on TV and get help for me. I'm not confused. I'm just scared. I remember when you made pancakes with smiley faces. I remember when we fell asleep on the couch and you let me stay there. I know what she made me do. I'm sorry. Love. Ty. I read it 3 times before I looked up. Emily was watching me, her eyes glassy. She told him he'd embarrass himself, she whispered. She said you'd make him look stupid in front of everyone if he chose you. I felt something twist in my chest. Not just anger. Not just heartbreak. It was something deeper. Grief for what had been stolen. I didn't confront Janelle that night. I didn't yell, didn't text her or call her or tell the producers I needed a second shot at an interview. I went home. Emily sat beside me on the ride, her head resting against the window. At a red light, she spoke. "Do you think Tyler's okay?" "I think he's scared," I said. "Me too." Silence. Then she asked, "Are we going to be okay?" I looked at her little face, trying so hard to sound grown up, to make sense of a world where love was a weapon and loyalty a currency. "I don't know," I said, "but I know we're going to be honest. From now on. Always." The reunion special was scheduled a week later. I wasn't sure I was going to go. Janelle had gone quiet. No posts. No public responses. The network had released a vague statement about editorial integrity and the emotional complexity of parenting in the public eye. Social media, on the other hand, wasn't so reserved. Clips of the finale racked up millions of views. The hashtag perfect parents finale trended for 3 days straight. Opinion was split, as it always is, but the tide had turned. People saw what they saw. And more importantly, they felt it. They felt that moment when Tyler looked back. They felt the note he left behind, even if they didn't know what it said. And somewhere, under all the noise, that mattered. The network wanted me to come on the reunion and discuss the aftermath. They phrased it like a request. I saw it for what it was, a test. Would I fight dirty? Would I throw her under the bus? Would I bask in the audience's favor and drive the final nail into her brand? I said yes, but only on one condition. "I don't want a segment," I told the producer. "I want to talk to Tyler. On camera. No cuts. No prompts. No prep. Just us. Sitting down. Like father and son." He hesitated, then said, "Deal." The reunion was slick, overproduced, full of the kind of performative reflection that makes real pain feel cheap. Former contestants cried on cue. Chase Monroe opened with his usual pageant voice. But everything changed when they rolled the segment called The Riley Conversation. It was just me and Tyler, sitting on a stage set made to look like a living room. 2 chairs, 1 coffee table, a single hanging lamp, casting soft, warm light. Tyler sat with his hands in his lap. I leaned forward. "You left me something," I said. He nodded slowly. I pulled out the note. "I read it," I said. "I kept it." Silence. Then he whispered, "She said I'd mess everything up." "You didn't." He looked up at me. His eyes were wet. "She said you only came on the show to make her look bad." I smiled gently. "I came to remind you who I was." Tyler started crying then, quietly, like a kid who didn't want to be heard. I pulled him into a hug. The studio didn't clap. They didn't dare. It was too raw, too real. No script in sight. After the episode aired, the floodgates opened. Emails, messages, letters. Strangers reaching out to say they'd seen themselves in that moment. Fathers who'd been alienated. Mothers who'd been silenced. Kids who grew up thinking they had to pick sides in a war they never enlisted in. We became a symbol, not of victory, but of survival, of honesty, of healing. Janelle did an interview a month later. A sit-down with a lifestyle blog, glossy and soft focus, where she admitted to letting the show get the best of her. She said she regretted guiding the kids. She never said coaching. She never said manipulating. But the world had already moved on. Not away from her, but away from the lie. Tyler came back to live with me 2 months after that. Quietly. No drama. He just walked in one Sunday with a duffel bag and said, "I think I want to be here more now." I didn't cry. Not then. I just made pancakes. With smiley faces. Tyler didn't speak much the first few days after he came back to live with me. He didn't cry. Didn't yell. He just existed. Moved like a shadow around the house. Small shoulders always slightly hunched. Eyes darting when I looked too long. He didn't sleep in his old bed at first, either. He camped out on the couch like he didn't want to disturb anything. Like he didn't believe the space still belonged to him. I didn't push. I gave him quiet. Structure. Pancakes. Every morning, I made his favorite, a round stack with chocolate chip eyes, whipped cream smiles, and banana eyebrows. I left a different Lego brick at his place each time. A red one for bravery. A green one for healing. A blue one for truth. He never asked about the bricks. But he kept them. By Friday, he'd started building again. Emily took it differently. She wasn't angry, but she was cautious. Protective of Tyler. Of herself. Of me. She hovered around him like a satellite in orbit, circling close but never quite touching down. And when Janelle called to check in, Emily was the one who said, "No, thank you," and hung up. Later, she told me, "Mom still thinks she's the narrator." That hit hard, because she wasn't wrong. There's something I learned the hard way. When one parent tries to rewrite the past, the child becomes the rough draft. Janelle had fed them lines like they were truths, coached them in interviews, taught them that memory was just another asset to manage, like lighting or sound design or hashtags. But kids don't forget. They just go quiet when things stop making sense. Tyler stopped asking me questions after the separation. Emily stopped correcting people when they mispronounced her name. At the time, I thought they were adjusting, trying to be strong. Now I know they were being erased, one line at a time. A week after the reunion aired, I found a stack of printed emails on the kitchen counter. Emily had printed them herself, all from the perfect parents' inbox. Fan letters, some from other kids, a few from single dads, one from a teacher who ran a media literacy class and used our story as a case study. "Do I write back?" she asked me. "I don't know," I said. "Do you want to?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I think if people only know the version of me from the show, they don't really know me at all. But maybe if I tell them what happened next, they will." That night, she started her own blog. Unscripted, notes from a kid who got edited. First post? A scan of Tyler's note. With his permission, she titled it, "This is what honesty looks like." It went viral in 3 days. Meanwhile, Janelle stayed quiet. For someone who once scheduled candid moments for her content calendar, the silence was telling. She posted a single photo on her socials a week later. Her in a sunlit field, no kids, no captions, no branding. The comments were brutal. "Where's your family, Janelle? Are you still coaching them or letting them breathe?" Not the victim arc after a finale like that. She turned off comments 2 hours later. A few days after that, I got an email from her manager. Something about rebranding, pivoting toward authenticity, and an invitation for a co-parenting workshop. I didn't reply. There's a difference between changing and changing the story. One's real. The other is just another episode. Tyler started therapy. At first, he didn't want to talk. He just built towers out of magnet tiles while the therapist, Maya, sat nearby and asked gentle questions. I sat in on the first few sessions, not saying much, just watching him unspool little pieces of himself, piece by piece. One day, he looked up from his build and said, "Sometimes I said things on the show that weren't true." Maya nodded. "Why do you think that happened?" He shrugged. "Because if I didn't say them, Mommy would stop smiling." That was the first time I cried in a session. Not loud, just quietly. Maya passed me a tissue without looking up. Emily kept blogging. Each post peeled back another layer. She wrote about what it felt like to be praised for saying something on camera that she didn't fully understand. She wrote about how applause felt like approval until it didn't. She wrote about how being edited made her question whether her real thoughts even mattered. I was told I was brave, but I wasn't brave. I was just repeating things grown-ups said would make the story better. Brave is telling the truth when it's not cute anymore. I read that 3 times before bed. She wasn't just writing for the internet. She was writing herself back into her own life. About a month later, Tyler asked me, "Did you ever say anything on TV that you didn't mean?" I paused, then nodded. I think I tried too hard to look calm. Even when I was scared. Even when I was mad. Why? Because I didn't want anyone to say I was unstable. He thought about that, then asked, "Did it work?" "No," I said, "but I think I'm okay with that." He smiled. A small one, but real. Then, one night, I got a text from Janelle. "Can we talk?" No cameras. Just us. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't want revenge. Not anymore. What I wanted was closure. But I wasn't sure if she was capable of giving it. Still, I texted back. "Only if the kids are part of it." She didn't reply right away. But 3 days later, she showed up at the house. No film crew. No makeup. No performance. Just Janelle. We sat in the living room. Emily on one end of the couch. Tyler in his beanbag. Me in the armchair. Janelle on the edge of the coffee table, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles went white. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. Emily raised an eyebrow. "I don't want to make excuses," she continued. I lost track of what mattered. And I hurt you. All of you. Especially you, Ty." Tyler didn't say anything. She looked at Emily. "And you, baby girl. I turned your voice into something I could monetize. I don't have a word for how wrong that is." Still, no one spoke. Finally, she looked at me. I was trying to win something, but I didn't know what the prize was. And that's when I said it. There was no prize. She nodded, eyes brimming, and left. We never gave the footage to the lawyers. Never filed for full custody. Never sold the story to a talk show, though a few tried. Instead, we rebuilt. Quietly. Honestly. One note at a time. There's a strange kind of quiet that follows chaos. Not peace exactly. Not yet. But something adjacent to it. Like the air after a thunderstorm. Still heavy, still damp, but no longer charged. That's what our house felt like in the weeks after Janelle's visit. No more scripts. No more cameras. Just silence that didn't need to be filled. And the space to start again. Tyler began sleeping in his own bed. That might sound small, but to me, it was everything. The first night he asked if I could tuck him in. I said yes like it was the most normal thing in the world, even though I wanted to cry. He still clutched his stuffed shark, the one with the torn fin. Still asked me to check the closet. But now, after the lights went off, he didn't ask, "What will people think if I say something wrong tomorrow?" He asked, "Can we go to the zoo next weekend?" Real questions. About real life. I could live in those questions forever. Emily rewrote her bio. The one on her blog. It used to read, "Reality show kid. Co-parenting expert by survival. Telling the truth, one blog at a time." Now it said, "Big sister. Amateur poet. Getting better at being honest with myself and others." She posted less frequently now. But when she did, it landed harder. One post in particular, titled "The Day My Brother Came Home," was shared over 70,000 times. It didn't look like a movie moment. There were no fireworks. No slow music. He just walked in, tossed his bag on the floor, and asked if we had cereal. I said yeah. That was the beginning of the real ending. A literary agent emailed me the day after that went up. They wanted to talk about Emily. I said no. Not yet. This time, she would get to decide when her voice became public. I started writing too. Not for the internet. Not for a deal. Not even for the kids. Just for me. Each morning before school drop-off, I'd spend 10 minutes with a notebook. No rules. No goal. Just me, a pen, and the weight I still carried in pieces I didn't always understand. One morning, I wrote, "Being the villain in someone else's story doesn't mean you're the bad guy. Sometimes it just means they didn't like your truth." I read that back 6 times, then underlined it. One day, Tyler asked if he could talk to Maya, his therapist, by himself. He said it in the car, after school pickup. His voice was quiet, but certain. "Just me this time. Is that okay?" "More than okay," I said. When I picked him up an hour later, Maya walked him to the car. "He's figuring things out," she said, just loud enough for me to hear. On his own terms. He climbed into the back seat, buckled in, and handed me a drawing he'd made in the session. It was a family. 4 people. 2 houses, side by side. But one had a bridge between them. Not a fence. A bridge. I ran into Janelle 2 weeks later. Grocery store. Canned goods aisle. She looked normal. Not camera ready. Hair tied back. A gray hoodie with a coffee stain near the wrist. No ring light glow. No producer over her shoulder. Just a woman pushing a cart. She saw me and froze. I nodded. She nodded back. Then she looked at the box of granola bars in my hand and said, "Still getting the peanut butter ones?" I smiled faintly. Ty's favorite. She bit her lip. "He still remembers?" "All of it." She looked like she might cry, but she didn't. Instead, she said, "I'm glad." I nodded and walked away. We started Rewrite Sundays that month. A tradition born out of Emily's suggestion and Tyler's quiet approval. Each Sunday evening, we'd take one story, any story. A fairy tale, a TV plot, even something from our own past. And we'd rewrite it. Together. One week, we took The 3 Little Pigs and made the wolf misunderstood. He was lonely. Just wanted to borrow a cup of sugar. Another week, we rewrote The Day Daddy Left into The Day We Decided to Be Honest. Tyler drew the pictures. In one frame, I was holding a suitcase. In the next, I was holding his hand. It's now taped to the fridge. One night, while brushing his teeth, Tyler said, "I like being here." I knelt down beside him. "Why?" He shrugged. "Feels like nothing bad's gonna happen. Like we're not in an episode anymore." I kissed the top of his head. "We're not," I said. Emily asked to visit Janelle a month later. I was surprised, but I didn't question it. I just said, "Of course." She packed a small overnight bag and brought a copy of The Velveteen Rabbit. When she got home the next day, she was quiet. After dinner, I asked, Want to talk? She nodded. She's trying, she said. It's not perfect. But she didn't cry this time. Didn't make it about her. That's a start. She asked me to forgive her. I looked up. What did you say? I said, not yet. That was enough. We kept building the bridge. Not to erase what had happened, but to move forward knowing that no one could ever ghostwrite our story again. A month before the new school year, Emily asked if we could go shopping, just the two of us. At the store, she tried on 3 backpacks before settling on a blue one with tiny stars stitched into the seams. It looks like something I'd pick, she said. And that was the first time I realized how powerful that was. For her to choose. For her voice to matter. For her identity to be hers again. We don't talk about the show much anymore. Not because we pretend it didn't happen, but because we don't let it define us. It was a moment. It changed things. But it didn't write the ending. We did. You'd think the hardest part of all this would be what happened on stage. The moment Tyler walked the other way. The way the lights burned down like judgment. The way Emily's hand tightened around mine, as if she could feel the air cracking in two. You'd think the worst part was that 7 seconds where a kid made a choice he didn't really make. Not yet, not freely. But the hardest part wasn't that moment. It was the ones that came after. The Tuesday mornings where he sat on the couch, backpack in his lap, looking for me to the door like he was trying to measure loyalty in car rides. The Wednesday nights when Emily would ask, is it okay if I miss therapy this week? Because sometimes she just didn't want to talk about it anymore. The healing wasn't cinematic. It was slow, mundane. It was laundry folded together. It was pancakes burnt and scraped. It was learning how to be a father again to 2 kids who were learning how to be children again, not actors. We took a trip that fall, just the 3 of us, up north to the mountains. No phone service, no Wi-Fi, just trees that made you feel small and trails that made you feel alive. Emily brought a journal. Tyler brought a flashlight and enough snacks to feed a small army. One night, sitting around the fire, Emily said, I think I understand now. Understand what? I asked. She poked the fire with a stick, watching the embers dance. Why you didn't yell at Mom on the show? I waited. I think if you had, I wouldn't have believed you. That hit harder than anything else in months. Because she was right. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't fought. I'd let the truth speak. The raw footage, the note, the silence between lines. And it hadn't been dramatic, but it had been enough. She looked at me then, eyes soft. I'm glad you didn't become the bad guy just because she made you one. I couldn't speak. Tyler was asleep in his sleeping bag, flashlight flickering against the tent wall. And the stars above us said everything I couldn't. Back home, we settled into something almost resembling normal. Emily was asked to do a school project on media and truth. She turned in a presentation called Edited Childhoods. What happens when adults write the script? Her teacher called me after school. I just wanted you to know, she said. Your daughter is, well, she's not like the others. She's brave. I know, I said. She said something during Q&A, the teacher added. She said, my dad didn't rescue us. He just reminded us how to rescue ourselves. I cried after that call. Not because it hurt, but because it healed something in me I didn't even know was still bleeding. Janelle stayed mostly out of the picture for a while. Not by force. Not through custody battles. She just knew. She still saw the kids. Sometimes Emily would go to brunch with her. Sometimes Tyler would spend a weekend there, mostly building and avoiding anything serious. They never asked to stay longer than scheduled. And Janelle never pushed. One Sunday, as I picked up Tyler, she asked to talk. We stood at her front step, her in a hoodie and slippers, me with the engine running in the background. I wanted to say thank you, she said. For what? For not turning them against me. I looked at her. I didn't have to. She nodded. There was no venom in her. No arrogance. Just someone who had seen what her reflection looked like without the filters, and had chosen, at least for now, to live in that. Thanksgiving came. Emily set the table. Tyler made place cards. He wrote Dad on mine and Ben on Janelle's. I didn't correct him. Neither did she. We ate together that year. At the same table. No cameras. No edits. At one point, Janelle asked if she could give a toast. We all froze a little. She stood, glass of sparkling cider in hand. I just want to say, she began, then paused, that I'm still learning, and that I'm grateful these 2-inch, she looked at the kids, are braver than I ever was. Emily gave a small nod. Tyler raised his glass. I said nothing, just clinked, and drank. Months passed. We started running into fewer people who recognized us. The barista who used to ask, "Aren't you that guy from the show?" now just asked, "You're regular?" Tyler made new friends at school. Emily started a podcast. She called it The Choice After the Choice. Episode 1 was just her voice. People think the show ended when the cameras stopped. But really, that was just the credits. The real story started afterward. This podcast is about how we choose again, and again, and again, until the story is really ours. I listened to it 3 times that night. Each time, I heard something different. Pain, hope, and her. Unfiltered. One afternoon, I found Tyler in the garage, sitting on the floor, surrounded by Lego bricks. He looked up. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. If the show happened again, and I picked you the first time, do you think Mom would have stopped loving me?" My heart cracked. I knelt beside him. "I think she would have been hurt. But not because of you. Because of herself. Because deep down, she knew she'd made you choose." He nodded, eyes focused on the bricks. "I wanted to pick you. The whole time." I put my hand on his shoulder. "You did. Just in your own way. When you were ready." He leaned into me, just slightly, and I didn't say another word. The thing about healing is, it doesn't have a finale. There's no reunion special. No triumphant ending. It's just small choices made quietly. Choosing to show up. Choosing to listen. Choosing to believe you're not the villain someone made you out to be. Choosing to let your kids see the real you, not the one cut for ratings. Tyler's note is still in my nightstand. Folded. A little worn at the edges. I don't read it often. I don't need to. Because now, I hear his truth in his voice. In his laugh. In the way he no longer asks, "Was I good today?" but instead says, "I had a good day." That's the difference. Not performance. Presence. I used to think the choice on that stage was the big moment. But it wasn't. The real choice came after. When we decided to become a family again, not because a show said so, but because we did. And this time, we wrote the ending ourselves. Subscribe to the channel